So, what event do you think, if there was any event, that made you transform from being a student? And this is more in your own head than that, because some people might think, well, I'm always learning. But was there a sort of event that took place where you thought, right, I'm now teaching other people. I'm now sort of at a stage where um, I'm thinking like a professional rather than thinking like a student.
Yeah, that probably came whilst I was at the RNCM. That's where I studied, the Royal Northern College of Music of Manchester, and it was probably there that I sort of began to realise how serious this was going to be for me. So much so that I wanted to make it a career. That's where we formed my quartet, which I'm sure we'll speak about a little bit later on. But it was mainly sort of starting to get paid to play the instrument as well as doing it as a hobby. And also maybe towards the end of my days at the RNTM, when I stopped having lessons and I was doing more teaching, so I got to that point where I'd transitioned then from the student to the teacher, or to the pro, or whatever you want to call it. So it was probably whilst I was at college and finishing off college, making that transition from being a student to being a sort of freelance, self-employed musician. Probably at that point.
And isn't that a great advert for the Royal Northern College of Music as well, if that's the case? Um,
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not just me. There's obviously there's quite a few of us that have been able to do that, and they're very supportive with that sort of transition as well. So, yeah.
yeah, I think that, and absolutely, I'm not one of these people. But if you think about it, a lot of people would say, well, you can't make a career as a baritone player, and they'd say the same about tenor horn because it's not an orchestral instrument. So, I mean, do you get that when you're sort of
Yeah,
going?
of course. Get that all the time, and especially you kind of get that whilst you're at music college because you're surrounded by other orchestral players or whatever. But we kind of got told in first year about someone said a comment about, out of everyone in this cohort now, there's going to be 1% of you that get an orchestral job, and that was to not just the brass banders or the tenor horn baritone players, that was to everyone. And that kind of made me think, yeah, well, it's not just me as a baritone player that others are going to have to think, and they always call it like this portfolio career. And I thought, why not? Just because I play the baritone, why can't I do it? We see other players do it as well on these instruments. So get it all the time, but we just sort of get on with it.